Tuesday, January 6th, 2026. And will you call the roll?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chairwoman Johnson,
Present.
Vice Chairman Simone,
Present.
Member Exner,
Here.
Member Connors, Member Zaffaroni,
Present.
Member Reposa,
Present.
Member Schultz,
Present.
Executive Director Miguel Nunez,
Present.
Legal Counsel Raymond Garcia.
Present.
Thank you. Agenda item number 1, the board may vote to elect a chair and vice chair pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 17-7-3 subsection A.
I'll move to nominate Jennifer Johnson as chair.
Second.
Thank you, sir. Okay, do I call the, this is awkward.
Well, I don't think you would necessarily
Say-
vote, but you can certainly,
No, I'm not voting.
you're still the parliamentarian for the board, so you
Okay.
can proceed with,
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, the ayes have it, and thank you very much. Thank you to my fellow commissioners. It's an honor to serve in this role. And with that, I would like to, would you like to?
Oh, sure. No,
No, you go.
I'll make a motion to elect Commissioner DeSimone, excuse me, Vice Chair of the Rhode Island Board of Elections.
I'll second. We have a motion and a second to re-elect Vice Chairman DeSimone to the Vice Chair position. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, abstentions? The ayes have it.
And I also like to thank the members of the board and the chairwoman for your continued support.
Thank you. Agenda item number 2, the board may discuss and vote to retain Alvario and Marcaccio LLP as legal counsel for calendar year 2026. And Miguel, how are we, there's no, just go.
No,
Yeah.
well, I believe Ray, if he has anything to add, but I believe it's just a vote.
no, I did submit the papers. I would be honored to serve as your legal counsel for another year. I would be delighted to help the board as well as your staff.
Yeah,
Thank you, Ray.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to move to retain Ray Macaccio as counsel for this board. He's done a magnificent job for the years I've been on the board. And he knows his intellectual inside out. I think would be at a loss if he wasn't properly representing us.
I agree.
It's my pleasure, Ray.
Thank you.
I agree.
You'd like to continue
And-
on.
and- And I second that.
I'll second it.
I vote.
So,
We got a couple
Second.
seconds.
Awesome.
2 seconds.
I concur. So let's call for a vote. We have a motion and 2 seconds. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, abstentions? The ayes have it. Ray, it's been amazing working with you. Looking forward
Thank
to
you.
continuing to do so.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board. I look forward to it. Thank you.
Agenda item number 3, the board may discuss and vote to retain John Anderson Esquire as legal counsel for legal conflicts matters for calendar year 2026. Do we have a motion?
Madam Chair, I move that we retain Mr. Anderson as conflict legal counsel. He's appeared before the board a couple of times and has shown that he knows the subject in and out. He would represent us well.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion to retain John Anderson. Do we have a second?
I second it.
Second, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, abstentions, motion carries. Agenda item number 4, the board may discuss and vote to approve the minutes of the meeting of December 15th, 2025. We've all received the minutes, and I trust had a chance to review. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the minutes. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And I will abstain because I was not present. Motion carries. Agenda item number 5, the board may discuss and vote to approve the second half of the board meeting calendar for 2026.
Honorable members of the board, as you know, at the previous meeting, the board did approve the first half of the calendar from January through June. And there were some suggestions in terms of as far as improving the bus access up to this end of Plainfield Pike. I was able to reach out to the Rhode Island Public Transit Authority, RIPTA, and I'm having a conversation with Christopher Durand, the CEO there, and he was very responsive to expanding the bus service here especially for meeting days. So he actually connected me with some of his staff, including his chief of security and chief operations officer, and they are coordinating as of yesterday. They are coordinating efforts to at least get service up to this part of Plainfield Pike up until 6:15 p.m. On meeting days, especially. And they actually for today, because I did reach out to them, a month ago, but because of vacations with their staff, they didn't have time to actually extend the actual bus line. So what they did do was they actually posted a bus, a smaller bus at the Walmart, in case anyone needed to come up this far, up to our bus stop here in front of Plainfield Pike. In the future, I did tell them that we would certainly make clear on the agenda, in our social media posts, and in our website, that if someone does require bus service, they can make a specific request to us to contact us, and we'll make sure that that RIPTA is aware that there is a meeting and there are people interested in attending, to ensure that the bus service is running. That is something long-term they have to work on. They can do this on their own over the next few months, but long-term, they have a board of the Rhode Island Public Transportation Authority, and the board does have to approve certain changes long-term for the bus schedule. But they were willing to go that route if necessary, because they want to support the elections, and they reiterated that to me numerous times.
That's great. Thank you for reaching out to them, Miguel. I think
Absolutely.
that's a good outcome.
I agree.
If there's any other discussion, please weigh in. Otherwise, I'll ask for a motion on the calendar.
Make a motion to approve.
Schedule was submitted.
Moved and seconded.
Second.
That's okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, abstentions, motion carries. And legislative season is upon us, and want to take the time to welcome Secretary of State Amore. Thank you for being here. It feels like you were just here yesterday, presenting legislation. But we'll start with agenda item number 6. The board may hear proposed legislation presented by the staff of the Board of Elections for submission to the General Assembly for the 2026 legislative session. The proposed legislation is attached to the agenda, and hopefully everyone had a chance to review it. Miguel?
Madam Chair, honorable members of the board, the staff has 2 pieces of legislation to present to the board. And I'll cover both pieces of legislation and explain them in detail and the purpose for discussion. The first piece of legislation would amend Section 171937 of Rhode Island General Law to extend the recount request deadline for state offices from 7 to 9 days. Last year, legislation was passed to extend the recount deadline for local offices from 7 to 9 days. So currently, we have 2 different deadlines for different offices. And if you recall, we had an issue in Barrington several years ago where not all of the ballots had been counted, especially for military and overseas, and there was concern that candidates would not know the actual final results or close to final unofficial results before deciding whether or not to file for a recount. The board supported that legislation last year. It did successfully pass the General Assembly to extend it for local contests. However, the same has to be done for state contests, so we would have a uniform deadline for state and local. We are also adding the term federal because federal was not specifically mentioned in the statute. So just to be clear that the recount deadline does apply to state and federal offices, and it would be 9 days for general elections. The primary deadline is is based on a regulatory deadline that's established in Board of Elections regulations, and that is 24 hours for primaries. The second piece of legislation would modify 1720-26 to remove the requirement that the board accept the ballot if the signature on the ballot envelope fails to match any of the voter signatures on file within the Central Voter Registration System or CVRS, but it does match the signature contained on the application for the mail ballot. Now, the purpose for this change would be to utilize this double verification process to better ensure that the individual requesting the mail ballot is in fact the voter, and the individual returning the ballot to the Board of Elections is in fact the voter. Now, just as a summary, under our current regulations, the current cure process would still remain in effect if this legislation were to be successful. Remember, if a voter returns their ballot to the Board of Elections and it contains a signature that does not reasonably match any of the signatures on file within the CVRS, within 24 hours, the voter receives a mailed notice informing them of the signature mismatch and their ability to cure the issue by returning the signed form within 3 or 7 calendar days after Election Day, depending on whether it's a primary or an election. So it's 3 days for a primary, 7 days for after Election Day. The voter would also receive a text message, an email, or a voice call advising them that there is an issue with their ballot that they can cure, but they do have to choose to enroll in such services that are offered through the Ballot Tracks service. If that voter returns that signed notice by the deadline and the signature matches in the CVRS, the ballot would be counted in the existing regulation. If the voter fails to return the signed notice, the deficient notice by the deadline, then the signature does not match the CVRS, the associated signatures for that voter that are used for comparison will be presented to the board for a final determination on whether it should be counted or should be voided. Now, currently, 88% of voter registration in the state of Rhode Island occurs through the Department of Motor Vehicles. Over 70% of voters' most recent signatures on file in the CVRS are from the DMV. And that number continues to climb every year as voters continue to go to the DMV and conduct transactions. And that is due to the success of automatic voter registration, which was passed about 8 years ago. The most important aspect to these signatures contained within the CVRS is that we know that those signatures can be directly tied to the voter because they have presented the required documents to the DMV while they're conducting that transaction before they sign that pad. This is why the staff is actively working with the DMV to ensure that the quality of the voter signatures continues to improve, and we are working towards getting some information and additional training out to the tellers at the DMV, which, by the way, the DMV has been very receptive to doing that increased training at all of their branches and through AAA. With this proposal, comparing the signatures contained on the ballot envelope to the signature contained within the CVRS better ensures that the voter did in fact submit the ballot. If there is an issue with the voter signature, the voter will still have the opportunity to cure it within that 7 or 3 day deadline, depending on whether it is a primary or a general election. And that deadline, remember, is after Election Day, not after they receive the notice, but actually 3 or 7 days after the date of the election. With that being said, I'm happy to answer any questions on either pieces of legislation.
Thanks, Miguel. Do any board members have questions, comments on any of the proposed legislation?
I just have a comment on, thank you very much, Miguel, that's great. But I think the weak point of this whole thing is that signature pad at the Registry of Motor Vehicles. And I think we've been at this for a long time to somehow convince the Registry of Motor Vehicles to install a signature pad that can capture a better signature, either by use of a stylus with a more pixelated signature pad. But right now, people go into the Registry of Motor Vehicles, sign with a fingernail, or sign with a blunt object. So we get a sort of a, not a very accurate signature. And I think that we should somehow convince the Registry of Motor Vehicles to invest the money with a better device to capture a reasonably good signature.
Yes, I may have mentioned this before, but they are in the process of issuing a request for proposals. And I believe it was when I talked to the administration there last few months ago, they had to start over with that process because there were some technical issues that happened. But they are in the process of updating all of their pads. And I've been clear to them that we are very interested in the technical specs for those pads, to make sure that we get the highest quality signatures available. And I know that we've worked with the Secretary of State's office. They've asked us multiple times for the specs that we need. So I know that the Secretary of State's Elections Division has conveyed to them as well that we need the hardware that can capture those high resolution images at the appropriate DPI that's needed for a very crisp signature. But part of it is also just making sure that voters understand that when they sign that pad, they're not simply signing a pad that's a signature that's just going to go on their license. It's actually, the signature could be their vote. So they can't just sign it just very freely and lightly. So that's where the training would come in. And this was actually a suggestion from the DMV that they could actually train their clerks to say, if they see just a squiggle, to say you should sign that. You need to sign that as you sign your signature regularly, unless that's their signature. But to remind them that for voting purposes could impact their ability to vote. So they actually agree that it's a training issue as well as a hardware issue. So they're willing to work on the training, and we're willing to get the information out there, the signage, to remind voters as well about signing that pad as accurately as possible. You're welcome.
Yes, sir. Go
I
ahead.
just have a question. Miguel, if we look at the bottom of the page where that redlined language is, where it starts in the event, and it goes into the following page, 3 lines, could you just basically explain what that's designed for?
You're saying on page 2, correct?
On page, yeah, I'm looking at 17, 20, 26, the bottom of that page, and then on to the next page.
On C2?
Yeah.
Subsection C2.
So that language is stricken essentially because, as it's written now, if the voter applies for a mail ballot and the ballot is issued by the local board of canvassers, and they're supposed to match the signature on the ballot application to the central voter registration signatures. If that ballot is issued, the ballot is then returned to us for tabulation. If our teams cannot match that signature on the ballot that comes back to what is in the central voter registration system, it gets flagged to be issued a deficiency notice, as I mentioned. However, before that happens, the staff under this statute is also required to ask for the ballot application from the local board of canvassers. And if the signature on the application matches what we received, then we would have to accept it. And if that doesn't match, then they would get a deficient notice. But obviously, the concern would be if someone were to apply for a mail ballot under someone else's, with not someone of their own ballot, and then they were to sign the ballot on the way back, then the voter signatures in the CVRS would not come would not be factored in at the end of the process, because according to the statute, we would have to match that signature that we receive to whoever applied for the ballot. And that is where this would eliminate that requirement. And because we have such a good amount of signatures now at this point in the CVRS that come from the DMV, and we know that individual did sign it on that pad, then it would be a more secure process to match against that database rather than the application at this point.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Miguel and I have had some discussions about this, and I had proposed some other amendments, but one thing that we will likely do, in fact, will do, is to the regulation itself, add even more notice to the person whose signature is being questioned. So in addition to getting an opportunity to have the deficiency corrected, they'll also get notice that their ballot is going to be reviewed by you, so that they can, if they wish, attend the meeting themselves.
And I know today we're hearing legislation, right? Not voting on it. That will come when the legislative subcommittee
Well,
meets. So,
this legislation is, we typically go directly through the board for staff legislation, Secretary of State legislation, and City and Town Clerks Association. Any other legislation, as in the past, has gone through the subcommittee, and we don't have that many bills. The
Today.
session just started today, so
Okay.
that'll take a couple of weeks.
all right. And being that we have other members from the canvassers and the Department of State, I'll invite if there's weigh-in from the Department of State or the boards, good opportunity to hear that now.
Thank you, Chairwoman and members of the board. Happy New Year. Rob Rock with the Secretary of State's office. We fully support the board's draft legislation to increase the recount deadline from 7 to 9 days. We do have one suggestion on the mail ballot certification bill. We suggest that instead of removing the mail ballot application signature from the mail ballot certification process, that we add the voter's driver's license number, state identification number, or the last four of the social onto the mail ballot application. We think that would go to what the board wants to do and to make the mail ballot process more secure, yet still keep what we think is a really good signature that's on the application in the certification process. We think that because the signature on the application is good enough for the local boards to authorize us to send a ballot, we think that that signature should also be good enough for the board to count a mail ballot on its way back. We also think that the signature that's on the application, and this is to Commissioner Scholz's point, with the DMV signatures, most of them are really good. There's some that aren't as great, but the signature on the mail ballot application is a really good signature for the voter, because when they sign that application, they know that their signature is going to be matched. And so they take their time. I'd like to think they sign it carefully. And so that's a really good signature that we'd hate to have removed from the mail ballot certification process. We think that our suggestion would make the process more secure, because I think that the local boards would have an extra check to make sure that the voter who is applying for the mail ballot is the voter, in fact, in the central voter registration system. We also understand that voters are used to providing their driver's license numbers and the last four of their socials in election matters. They have to do it to register to vote. They've got to do it to change their information. They've got to do it to apply for a mail ballot online. So they're used to providing that information when working with the electoral process. And then finally, in 2024, 66% of the mail ballot voters in Rhode Island applied using our website, which means they had to provide their driver's license number. So voters are already used to providing that information when they're applying for a mail ballot. So we think that adding that to the mail ballot application would make the process more secure, but also leave that mail ballot application signature in play for the certification process in the chance that the CVRS signature, there's a discrepancy with it with your staff. So that's our suggestion. But again, we support the 7 to 9 day increase on the other bill, and just we support this bill with that one suggested change.
Thank you, Rob.
Can I ask a clarifying
Yes,
question? So I
you
don't know
can.
how this works. So I request a mail ballot and I'm going to put my last four of my social. So is this, would the Board of Canvassers have access to my social just to make sure? Is that something? Yes, perfect.
Yeah, so
I saw
the voters, part of the central voter registration system, it's not public data, but your last four of the social
Has all
and
that.
driver's license numbers are
Got it.
accessible by the cities and towns. So
Got it.
that's kind of our suggestion, is that they would be able to not only match the signature, but
Mhm.
also match that
Information.
identifying information to further ensure that the voter applying is the person that's in the voter registration system.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So just in walking through the process, so when, we all know that there are groups that, for lack of a better term, harvest the number of ballots on mail ballots. So those people would then be asking the voter for that information in order to process these mail ballots, right?
Well, we would consider the mail ballot application the same as the voter registration. So right now, the voter registration form requires a driver's license,
Mhm.
a state ID, or the last four of the social. And there are groups that register voters quite
Absolutely.
frequently, especially around election time. So while we want to make sure that we protect voters' information, there is current precedent for that information to be on the forms. And we do instruct third-party organizations that are registering people to vote, that they should be getting that information to the local board of canvassers as soon as possible. And we'd expect that folks who are assisting voters with their filling out mail ballot applications, that they would get that information to the local board of canvassers as soon as possible.
Right, but the vote is going to be given that to whoever's seeking the mail
Well,
ballot.
the
from
voter's
them.
going to be putting it on the application.
Mhm.
And then if the voter trusts the individual to drop it off at the board of canvassers, yes, same thing that if they trust an individual with the voter registration form, that information is on the form. And yes, Commissioner, needs to be protected. But because we already do that for voter registration, we think that it's a reasonable expectation on a mail ballot application as well.
So, but the mail ballot application is a public document, right?
As is the voter registration form, except for that information. So that information is going to be redacted if the information is requested by a voter. Now, our office, every election has a mail list for anybody who wants the list of people who have applied for a mail ballot. And that's just an Excel spreadsheet, name, address, party affiliation. The actual form, in my experience, is not often asked for. They want to know who applied and where the mail ballot is going. They don't ask for any other information. So if someone does ask to see an actual application, the local board of canvassers, just like the voter registration form, will have to redact that information off of the form.
So we'd be relying on a local board to do that.
That's correct. And we rely on them forever to
I
do it with voter registration. I'm confident that that process is followed.
Any other questions?
I have a question.
Comments? Yes.
So Rob, are we looking at 30%, give or take, of these applications would come through the door to the Board of Canvassers, not being applied for online?
And that was what it was in 2024. I'd like to think that that number is going to decrease as we move on. I think more and more people that are going to apply for a mail ballot will do so online. So that 33% will continue to decrease, I think.
I agree. And then when those 60-some%, let's say 70% come through today, that the local Board of Canvassers, there's no signature for them to compare. They just go by the PII information.
That's correct.
So the 30%, if this were to go through, would they do a two-step where they do the PII and compare the signature with the CVRS?
I think that it would be much like the process is now for the certification. If the CVRS, if there's a discrepancy with the CVRS signature, you go to the mail ballot application signature. Like this, I would think that you go with the signature first. And if there's a discrepancy, you look at the PII, or you could do both. But I think that, without thinking about it too much, I think that would be a backup in case there's a discrepancy with the signature. Because we all know, to Commissioner's point, the DMV signature is not great. We don't want a voter's application to be rejected because they quickly signed at the DMV, yet on their application, they signed a little more thoroughly. So ultimately, we're trying to prevent or reduce the number of rejected mail ballots and rejected applications.
Mhm.
I agree. I do have to say, just as a side, people that are left-handed, those signature pads that do not work well. It's not a good thing. So you're looking again just at a 30%, give or take, which should decrease as time goes on.
Right. And we ultimately just want that signature on the application to still be in play in case there's a discrepancy.
So your suggestion is to keep this language, this red
red
line
language?
language?
Yes, and then we'd like to suggest adding the piece on the application, because we do think that would also strengthen the mail ballot process as well, asking voters for that personal identifying information.
I guess I'm more focused on someone trying to take advantage of a voter. And the person who, quote unquote, signs the ballot application, right, perhaps may or may not be the voter in some instances. And we found that when we've gone through some of these. In fact, we just had a group in the last election that we had an issue with. So if this board is going to be required to use that signature over some other signature when the signatures don't match, if the signature on the envelope and the signature on the ballot matches, correct me if I'm wrong, Ray, but if those two signatures match, we're required to validate that ballot.
Right. So in the event, I don't know how likely it is, but we have reason to believe it has happened. But in the event that the local board failed to make a comparison in the first instance, and then this board were to look at the signatures and see a significant discrepancy between the CVRS specimen, signature specimen, and what's on the application, you would still be locked in by this statutory language that exists. So when when the first part of this isn't done correctly, there's no safety any longer, because it all assumes that at the first instance, the local board shall make that comparison. If, because of human error or an oversight, they don't, you're now stuck with just doing a circular review, which is the application with what's been returned, and never looking at the signature specimen on file through the CVRs, which is probably your most dependable signature that you would have.
Thank you.
And I think, Commissioner, in the instance you just mentioned, with the issue that you just dealt with, if the application had the personal identifying information on it, the board could be sure that that individual signed.
See, that's what I'm not sure of. That's what I'm not sure of, because there's no guarantee that other people in the household don't have that information.
There's no
I
guarantee.
can point to my household.
Correct. There's no guarantee, but I
There's
would.
probably 4 people in the household that know my social security number and I know theirs.
Right. Yeah, and I think that, so there's no guarantee, but I think it adds to the security of the process, where you may have 3 or 4 people in your house that know yours, but that's probably it in the entire world. But if someone looks, at a signature, that's a little bit tougher to forge.
Yeah.
And then I also think too that I think the bigger concern too is that if the language, the struck language remains struck, then if you rely on a signature from the DMV that's not great, that person's ballot's going to be rejected without looking at what I believe is to be a better signature on the mail ballot application.
But if how many of the mail ballot applications are coming in online?
Right now, it's 2/3.
Okay. And you're expecting that number to go up?
Correct. Yes. So this is
Probably.
just an
So
avenue
let's say
to.
that number goes up to 3/4.
Yep.
So then 75% of the people aren't signing for a mail ballot on their application anyway.
But they have provided that PII. Because in order to do it online, you've got to provide your driver's license number.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I did just want to add that we don't just compare to the last signature, which could be the DMV signature. Nowadays, it's over 70% of the time, it will be the DMV. But we go back, 7, 8. I think right now we have the capacity up to 7 or 8 signatures within the CVRS. So for most people, except for younger folks, they will have a wet signature in there at some point. So there are multitudes of signatures. We just don't go against the DMV signature. And in terms of the signature being the PII, this is this change would affect a small number of ballots that we see. By the vast majority of ballots that we see don't get flagged. The signatures match. Very few ballots end up at the end of the day in front of the board. So you could potentially be making the 50, 60,000 voters to put PII on an application when it's only 100 or 200, if that, at most, ballots not being matching in the signatures. The vast majority are matched. I did look. I know that across the Eastern Seaboard, none of the New England states require PII on the application. Virginia does not either, neither does New Jersey. As I got further south, I didn't have the time to check the entire country yet, but Florida does require it, but they do reject the application if that PII does not match. So the voter will not even get a ballot if the PII does not match. And last year, there were two bills introduced by Senator Morgan and John Breen that the board voted to oppose. That did require driver's license numbers on mail ballot applications. I just say that for reference because the board did act on that. Now, I can't say that I'm not overly familiar. I don't know if that bill was exactly the same. It could have been slightly different. I know we have a social security component here, last 4 digits, but it was a bill that was introduced that didn't pass the General Assembly that would require the driver's license number on the application. So that was just some historical context to how this was handled last year in the General Assembly.
in that bill that Miguel referenced from Rep. Breen also required essentially proof of citizenship to apply for a mail ballot. It was proof of date of birth was the actual language used, but I think the intent was proof of citizenship.
Yes.
I just have a question. So, I mean, it seems to make sense to me from right now online, that's where most people apply, and they have to put driver's license or last four.
Yeah.
I think bringing the process across, whether paper or online, to make it the same, I think makes sense. I think it does add an extra layer of security. I still do have concerns about not striking this language though, because we were in, not very long ago, sitting here looking at it and
Correct.
saying, these two applications, the application and the ballot match, but it did not match in some cases, in my opinion, the CVRS. So that would still require us, if it somehow did slip past, but I think less would slip past if we do update the paper form. So I think we could maybe adopt that. I don't know if it's in this particular section of the bill, but I think we can adopt that. But I do think we need to fix this sentence. It's already struck, either strike it as is or change it. So we have the option to bring the CVRS into the mix.
I agree.
I have one other question for you, now that the commissioner raised that. And again, I don't know how familiar you are with the language that we're striking, but if the language that we're striking basically references shall, at least on on the third line of the red lined item, it references shall, and it references again, 1, 2, 3, on the top line on the second page, the word shall. And in the event that the signatures are incorrect, like what we dealt with the commissioner, if those two shall amounts were changed to may, would that assist us in any way, Ray, of still keeping the language in, but giving us leeway as far as what we want to look at when the language comes in?
I'd like to give that a little more thought, but
Okay.
yes, it might help with that. I think it's going to depend on just listening to what Rob is saying about the possibility of introducing PII and whether the PII would be viewed with the signature or one or the other. It's going to just depend on what this ultimately looks like. But shall, I think, is, by striking this is better, but perhaps by putting in may, it could give the board some discretion when circumstances warrant to not use that signature between the ballot application and the oath envelope. As a practical matter, I think if it's in the statute that you should be considering it, you'd be hard pressed not to. That's really where we would end up on this, I think. But these are all, what Rob is raising with the PII, these are all things that, the board can consider.
I think, and we're not voting today. I think
Well,
there's
the session
more-
starts today. The sooner we can put this in, it doesn't have to go through today. Certainly, if the board wants to add language as suggested by the Secretary of State, we could work on that with their staff. We would need to, as Ray mentioned, the logistics of that, are we matching the signature on the application to the signature on the CVRS, or are we matching? Because if we're going to rely on the PII as the background, the back stop, then when do we do that? As far as, are we matching, when do we match as the signature to the CVRS from the application and rely on that? And if someone does not provide that information, does it serve to affect the issuance of the mail ballot? I don't believe that's the way we're looking to do it, but we would have to talk with their staff to work on some language. But the way it's drafted now is the way that the staff has felt that it would address the concerns from the board previously, to not have to match to ballot applications that have signatures that were issued by the local board, but do not match what's on file within the central voter registration system.
Yeah, I speak for myself. I want to process more after hearing. I can see the practical suggestion that Department of State is making. I can hear the concerns of, for other reasons, but I know the session starts today, but I think we need more time. And also, it doesn't say on the agenda that we're voting to submit our support. Does that matter?
I thought that let me just read it.
Just says may hear.
Yep.
It doesn't. say
For submission, but I think, Madam Chair, with everything else going on, I think it's probably best just to, at the earliest, put it on your next agenda.
Okay.
Or later, depending on when the staff can come up with some other language.
Okay. So then,
So we would hold this bill and the recount deadline bill until next Tuesday, perhaps at the earliest, or the next meeting.
and do we have any immediate suggestions of I know we're talking about not striking the language versus wording changes versus PII. So we could have that continue that conversation next week.
Yeah, that I think so. Yes.
Yes. Okay.
I think so.
Okay. Thanks, Rob. Agenda item number 7, the board may hear proposed legislation presented by the Office of the Secretary of State for submission to the General Assembly for the 2026 legislative session. The proposed legislation is attached to the agenda. I want to welcome again, Mr. Secretary, Kathy, Rob.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. I'm joined by Kathy Placencia, we just heard from Rob Rock. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to address you today. And my hope for the new year is that the elections of 2026 go as smoothly and uneventfully as the election for chair and vice chair did here today.
I don't think they will, Secretary.
And I'm going to check when I get home as to how many members of my family know my social.
I'll bet there's at least one.
And to Commissioner Giacone's point, this is an opportunity to kind of be consistent in the mail ballot application process.
Yeah.
And when we hear from the public about security in elections, we hear the critics say, well, if you're not applying online, the ballot application process is not as secure. And that's been a consistent complaint or critique that we've heard as a department. So this is an opportunity for us to work together, perhaps, and come up with some language that works for everyone.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, the first two pieces of legislation that I'll present are pieces of legislation that this board has supported in the past. I'll go through those expeditiously since you know what they are. The first is to move the primary election date, which we have been making the case for since I became Secretary of State. And this is based on complying with the Military and Overseas Voter Empowerment Act. As you know, our office and the folks here are pressed in the period of time from the primary to the general election. And if there is a disputed election and a recount and litigation, the chances of us meeting the MOVE Act's requirements are slim to none. We feel obligated to put this legislation forth each and every year, despite the General Assembly's hesitance to pass this, because we know this is a when and not if. And if there aren't any questions, I'll move on to the next one. Thank you.
Go ahead.
The next one deals with potentially same-day voter registration, but really what it deals with is asking the voters of Rhode Island to change the Constitution, which restricts voter registration to 30 days prior to an election. That restriction is the most lengthy in the country. And we believe that Rhode Islanders should have an opportunity to weigh in on having an opportunity for the General Assembly then to lower that threshold, perhaps the same day, or perhaps to what North Carolina does, which is during the early voting process only, or perhaps to what our neighbors in Massachusetts do, which is 10 days. That would be up to the General Assembly. But what we know is we are a complete outlier. Our restriction on voter registration is the longest in the country. And this does not change anything around residency. So you'd still be required to be a resident of the state for 30 days as the Constitution states now. And this would give people an opportunity to engage at a later point. And we have the data available to us, the folks that register beyond the restrictive date. And that's a significant number. And so we like your support on putting forward this bill once again. If there are any questions, there aren't any questions, I'll move on to the third.
Actually,
Thank
just,
Do you have a question?
I do.
Commissioner?
I'm sorry, it might not be in this, Mr. Secretary. You said, it mentions that they have to be a resident for 30 days?
Yeah.
Is that in a separate section or oh, there it is on the side, sorry. Thank you. I just saw it. So
You
thank
answered your own question.
I did.
Look at that.
I'm gonna read further down. Thank you.
So the next piece of legislation was submitted a little later in the session last year, so it did not come before you for your support, but we asked for your support on what we're calling an online nomination paper portal. So in essence, this legislation will allow voters to electronically sign nomination papers for any candidate or voter, for any candidate eligible to vote that they can be voting for. This portal will provide a secure, convenient option for voters to sign nomination papers and reduce the workload of elections administrators and the potential for fraudulent activity. In particular, it includes our military members as well as voters with disabilities who will then have the opportunity to participate in this part of the electoral process, a part of the process that they really have been exempt from for a long period of time. The online nomination signature system will be built on top of the online voter registration portal, which has been in place for 9 years, and the online mail ballot application system, which has been in place for 2 years, and we had a robust discussion around that system earlier in this meeting. The online portal will be an option for candidates and voters. This bill does not eliminate the current paper system. Candidates will have a greater flexibility in collecting signatures and the opportunity to reach out to voters in a different way. We also believe this will make the nomination paper challenge process easier for this board because more and more people will sign electronically instead of using the paper form. Full implementation would be proposed for the 2028 elections. However, it provides an option for the Department of State to implement this during a special election prior to that. The House of Representatives passed this bill overwhelmingly last year. The Senate did not. It got to them a little late. We're hoping that we can convince them to move this on that side as well. This offers an opportunity for voters to use the same system that we're talking about. Punch in their voter ID, their license number or their state identification number, and then see a menu of candidates that they could actually endorse. Once they click that candidate, that endorsement would go through to the local canvassing clerks. They would square that up, and that would be a counted signature. This would eliminate folks who sign whatever nomination paper comes before them, even though they're not in that same district. And it certainly would, as I mentioned, diminish fraud because people are willing to use our system now to register to vote or to ask for a mail ballot application. They would be willing to use the same system here. When the congressional District 1 signature issue occurred, we heard many people say, well, people should be asking for IDs when they are seeking these signatures. Well, no one is going to give someone their ID after they knock on the door, but people are willing to provide their information through this portal. And we know through the technological folks that we talk to around this, that they can create this system on the existing system for voter registration and mail ballot application. This would be first of its kind in the nation, and it would expedite this process. But I want to stress again that it will also include people who have not been included. It's very difficult for someone who is disabled in many cases to get up and answer the door. For military personnel who are serving out of state or overseas, they don't have the opportunity to nominate a candidate. And so this would provide them with that opportunity. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to take those.
I remember listening to you talking about this in the House last year. And
Yeah.
I also didn't know that because the first year I was on this board, we eliminated someone because like 200 of their signatures were in the wrong district. I almost cried sitting there. Like, that's an insane amount of signatures. So I didn't know that.
Yeah, and as Rob stated,
That's crazy.
it will take a while for this to catch on.
Mhm.
But I think when people realize they can do this in the comfort of their own home,
Yeah.
And it makes outreach a little different, right?
Mhm.
Candidates are going to have to call or go to a door and say, why don't you do it this way? And then they have peace of mind as well.
Mhm.
They know that signature is solid. they know that nomination is solid.
Can I ask, so can
Except for
can a
maybe
candidate
in
do a mix of it?
Simone's house where
Yeah.
everyone knows.
Everyone knows his social security. Can a candidate, like, can you do a mix of it?
Yeah, oh, yeah. It
Okay.
does not prohibit the traditional system from
But the
going on.
countdown will just say this were the electronic
correct.
signature. Got it.
That's correct.
Yeah, thank you.
I like it. Any other questions on this?
So I would take a voter can sign a number of nomination papers for the same office.
Yes.
We can do that.
Okay. Tell me, once this passed, will this require rules and regulations to enforce?
Yeah, I would imagine it would, only because the other systems that we talked about earlier require the same.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Commissioner Giacobone?
It's from a technical standpoint, you said it's going to be built on top, you're suggesting it built on top of an existing system. Does that existing system have requirements in terms of security? I noticed in the other bill, you actually mentioned specifically security reviews and, following the
It
NIST
does. It does.
standards.
Rob could probably speak to the security on that system. Or Kathy.
I hate that thing. It's gotta be green.
So the system would be, the system we already have in place for the online mail ballot and the voter registration system, where someone would log in using their first name, last name, date of birth, and zip code, and then have access to whatever candidates they're eligible to sign for. So this is behind the Secretary of State's, lack of a better term, wall, our firewalls and all of that. So our office would be overseeing this process. So the system is already built. We're just essentially adding a module to it to allow people to sign a nomination paper.
Is there regular security audits on that, like a yearly check or?
Yes, as a matter of fact, in the next couple months, all of our systems in the state, voting machines, electronic poll books, central voter registration system, online voter registration is going to go through a security assessment to ensure that our systems are as secure as possible.
Thank you.
And the system is monitored and probed regularly beyond the requirement by law.
So do you foresee, for example, a candidate could in fact come to a house with an iPad and ask that person, please sign into your account at the Secretary of State's office and give me a nomination signature?
They could. They could. I think it's more likely that they hand them
Sure.
a piece of paper that
Sure.
directs them.
Sure.
But that would be the same
But I
for
mean-
some of the folks that
Right,
Rob talked
and-
about earlier, voter
Sure.
registration.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it'd still give the candidate the ability to go to the
Yeah.
house and,
Some of the pushback when it was heard last year was that it makes it too easy for someone to get on the ballot. I disagree with that. There has to be outreach either way. Unless you have a definitive email list of everyone in your district, which we know does not exist, that's hard. And to get people to pay attention to that email, there still has to be outreach.
right, yeah, I think there definitely has to be outreach. I just think that this eliminates some of the
And I agree. It gives
Games.
people,
paper games. let's
Yeah.
Call them.
it allows people that might not have the
I think
opportunity to
the
nominate.
folks who are members of this board know exactly where this idea came from.
I'm sorry, I have a follow-up question to that.
Yes, you do.
The Commissioner DeSimone's question raised something for me from an IT security standpoint. First of all, I wouldn't recommend somebody, if someone comes to your house with an iPad, please don't put your PII in there. I almost feel like that
Yeah.
has to be in here, that you can't do that because somebody could go to your house and say, I'm working for a campaign, capture that information, you've signed in, and walk away. So I almost feel like there needs to be something in here to prevent that from happening,
Well,
that they
if there-
can't do that.
If there were rules and regulations that we would need to promulgate, if this passes, right, that could perhaps be a
Sure.
place where we could address that. 'Cause
I mean, I
agree.
guess is there something on in your security that could ensure that?
Well, so in order to gain access,
To make the number blind, so to speak, so that exactly what the commissioner referenced wouldn't happen.
yeah.
I think the same holds true for someone asking for your ID.
Mhm.
I think most people would say, I'll do this on my own. Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate the opportunity, but I'm going to do this on my computer, on my phone, wherever. I take seriously
Mm.
your suggestion that there should be, or there may be a caveat
Mhm.
around campaigns using a device to do it, but they're already doing that with voter registration.
Okay.
And the other question I would have is, so for the candidate, how soon are those signatures visible to the candidate? So I'm a candidate, I go to 25 houses and ask them to go to your portal and essentially endorse me. How soon is that information available to the candidate? The nomination papers. I mean.
So that'll be to see that the signature was validated. So as soon as it's submitted, the next day, the town would have access to it. So the town comes in the morning and they'd have anybody who endorsed the candidate the day before, and they would process those signatures just like they would if a stack of paper were in front of them. So as soon as the board of canvassers selects accept, then that shoots to our website and you can see that that signature has been validated for that candidate.
So it would still have to be validated by the local board.
That's correct.
And once it's validated, it's live. That information is live once it's validated by the Board of Canvassers.
Okay, so it's immediately live when they validate. Okay,
Anyone?
thank you.
Okay.
Okay. When I first appeared before this board, I did not need these. I don't know if it's the job that has aged me or not. The last piece of legislation is urgent because it's sunset. It has already sunset. And basically, this is the electronic mail ballot returns for overseas and military voters and voters with disabilities. That number is under 2,000, or at least it was for the 2024 election, but it offers people the opportunity to submit their ballot electronically through a secure system that the Secretary of State oversees. And it allows folks who are disabled. I know when the bill originally passed, the greatest advocates for the bill were the folks who are representing the blind. And they made the case that this was an opportunity for those folks to vote in the comfort of their own home without any real assistance other than what they already had in place. And then obviously our military members who are unable to return a physical mail ballot because perhaps they are on a aircraft carrier in a combat zone, et cetera. And so this is used, this type of system is used all over the country. We think that it worked well since it has been implemented here, and it is much better than existing law. Existing law still relies on a fax. And so we know that that is not secure. This is as secure as it can be. That case was made to the leadership in the General Assembly that we should continue and reauthorize this legislation for the upcoming 2026 elections
And when did it sunset?
at the end of 2025.
At the end of 2020. Makes sense. Anyone have any questions on this piece of legislation?
Just as a point of reference, the board last year did vote to support all of these pieces of legislation. I don't believe they've changed. And except for perhaps the nomination one, because I think that was later in the session, but the board did vote last year to support all of these. And then 2 years ago, the board voted to support the one that's the bill that sunsetted, which is obviously a concern for the staff as well, because any elections through 2026, until that is passed, we cannot accept those ballots through the secure portal for these individuals. And our staff is trained and has access to that system. So we actually retrieve the secure ballots from the system, print them on a ballot on demand printer, and we can tabulate them through our equipment. And unfortunately, because of the sunset, those folks, we would not be able to accept the ballots in that way and would have to rely on them being sent through the mail or, as was mentioned, through fax.
Do you anticipate being able to get this in front of,
It has been pre-filed,
okay,
so it's in the hopper now.
Yeah.
And as Miguel said, it's the board's function. We oversee
Yeah.
the process, but it's the board's function.
okay.
We have the same issue because it says me here.
Yeah, I think I was just going to say, well, first of all, thank you for being
Thank
here,
you. I
Secretary.
appreciate you hearing me.
And I think that at another meeting soon, whether it's next week, we should
We have a
formally
meeting Tuesday.
vote to approve, so like we've done in the past, and maybe there's a meeting beforehand of the legislative subcommittee to follow the same process we have in the, oh, we don't. Oh, that's what you said. Yeah,
Mhm.
sorry. But then I know in the past, when we have voted in support or what have you, we've communicated that to leadership,
Yes.
General Assembly leadership. Okay.
Absolutely.
And we do expect that, especially the electronic signature bill is going to be heard very, very soon. So
Okay.
with the board's support would be really helpful
Okay.
as we go to the hearing for that.
So we'll get that next,
Yeah.
we'll get that done next
I
week.
don't think there's an issue. I just think it's the way.
We can't.
our Agenda is set. Put it on the vote.
And we relayed to the leadership in the House and the Senate what Miguel just relayed to you.
Yeah.
Is that the board has previously supported.
Yeah.
That in its original form.
Exactly. And then once we vote, we can formally do that. So it's on record.
Meeting next week.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 8, the board may hear proposed legislation presented by the Rhode Island Cities and Towns Clerks Association for submission to the General Assembly for the 2026 legislative session. The proposed legislation is attached to the agenda. And, oh, there you are. Hi, Nick.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. Happy New Year. Nick Lima, I'm the Registrar Director of Elections for the City of Cranston Canvassing Authority and the Chair for the Rhode Island, for the Elections Committee of the Rhode Island Town and City Clerks Association. So I'm here in both of those capacities regarding our legislation from the local clerks for the 2026 session, which really for the board should be very familiar to you. Because these are all bills that have come up in past years. They're actually all bills that have passed in one form or another, different chambers in prior years. Some of them have passed, in fact, 3 or 4 times on the House side. Our first bill is the one dealing with appointments of local boards of canvassers. This is a bill that the board supported last year. You may recall it actually passed the House last session. It was the first year for this bill. So it didn't get traction in the Senate, unfortunately, but we are reintroducing it in both chambers this year. And it's a board that just cleans up a bill that cleans up some of the back end mechanisms around the board's appointment process that have become gray areas and have become issues over the years for local boards. For example, current law says that if the political parties fail to submit a nomination list to the mayor or council president, as the case may be, then that mayor or president is authorized to then appoint any party voter to the legislative body, the town council, city council, to make sure that vacancy gets filled. However, the law does not define what constitutes a failure, whether it's a council president or a mayor to submit that nomination to a council. So they can't sit on it for 6 months and keep a 3-member board not having 2 of its seats filled, which happened in a couple of municipalities in recent years, not because of malign intent, but just because it wasn't a priority. This puts a little teeth in that 30-day ticking clock in the process. And it's a continuity of operations concern for us, obviously, because if we don't have a quorum, we can't conduct an election or a special election if it comes up. So that's the first part of the bill. And it also clarifies a couple of other, again, gray areas that have happened in the past. For example, in terms of the terms of boards of canvassers members. They're supposed to be 6-year staggered terms, and they're supposed to expire in a non-election year. You're not supposed to have 2 of your 3 board members expiring in October between the primary and the general election. That we know that because the enabling legislation that was originally acted in the public laws by the General Assembly in the 1920s for many of the cities and towns laid that out specifically. Well, somewhere along the way, some of that's gotten lost. You've had members that were appointed for a 6-year term resigned midway through the term, and someone didn't really understand the history of the law there, and they were appointed for another 6-year term as of that date of the resignation instead of filling out the remainder of that fixed term. This clarifies that board members are supposed to be staggered on a 6-year term with 1 board member expiring every 2 years, much like the BOE actually operates. But we found that some cities and towns over the years, that staggering nature has become offset. All of this again does is make sure that's corrected going forward when it comes to board of canvassers appointments. And then the last part of the bill deals with some other continuity of operations and security concerns. As you know, there's been instances where sometimes it could be difficult to reach a local canvassing clerk, especially late after hours on election night where there might be an emergency situation, maybe results didn't transmit correctly. All the bill does is codify the requirement to have a designated point of contact, the chief local election official in every city and town, and that person's contact information, emergency contact information, be kept and maintained on file with both the State Board of Elections and with the Secretary of State. And additionally, that chief local election official has to designate an alternate to be contacted in case that they're not available or their office is vacant, as well as the chair of the Board of Canvassers. Now you have 3 points of contact in all 39 cities and towns. It's required by statute and not just by practice. So that clarifies the process for doing so. It also adds an element of security. The very last section of the bill in terms of access to the central voter registration system. Already, the Secretary of State has the authority over the central control of the central voter registration system, but obviously the local boards have to access it in order to perform our functions. This assigns that chief local election official under the direction of their local board to be the only agent of the municipality that should be communicating back and forth with the Secretary of State to add, remove, or modify a system user's access. So that way there's a very clear chain there. And you can't just have a part-time seasonal staff member that just got hired 3 weeks before an election, calling up the Secretary of State, hey, I need access. Can you please add me on? This puts, again, in clear policy in state law that no, it has to go through that particular officer who has that responsibility as part of their duties. So again, a lot of these things are already done in practice currently, but by codifying them, there's an election security element there, and it made sense to do that here as part of this bill if we're already addressing some of the other issues in 17.8. So if there's any questions on that, Madam Chair, I'd have to answer them.
Great, thank you, Nick. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
So the next bill deals with the legal ads that local boards of canvassers are required to run for each and every election. This is 17.810, as well as what would be a new statute for early voting advertising. So over the last few years, the local boards have had some concerns about our limited resources and what we expend them on. When it comes to legal ads, newspaper ads are getting prohibitively expensive. So if we're going to invest money in those ads and reach the voters who are still relying on newspapers as a primary source for their election information, we want to make sure that the ads that we are running make sense and are getting the best bang for our buck. We do not have a requirement, however, currently in the law to advertise early voting in any way, shape, or form. Yet, over a third of voters are voting early. So it's a major, I think, flaw in state law. There is no explicit requirement. Meanwhile, we have a voter registration deadline advertising requirement that is only required if we are not going to be open our normal business hours on the deadline day, which is typically a Sunday, and most of us are not going to be open the 8-hour day. But under the current law, it's only required to advertise that deadline twice in a newspaper of local circulation if those hours are going to vary from your local board's normal operating hours. Now, that provision goes back probably a century. That provision predates the existence of online voter registration. It predates automatic voter registration, predates the fact of us getting 84 to 85% of our registrations through the DMV. And as a result, every time we have a voter registration deadline and we do designate a drop box or we open our offices on that deadline day, no one is actually physically coming in to register to vote. So we're running these newspaper ads for a function that doesn't really serve a good purpose. Now, I used to work for newspapers. I'm a former newspaper editor. So I'm sensitive to taking away any revenue from newspapers. So what we do here is actually a trade-off. We get rid of the requirement to advertise at a newspaper the registration deadline and shift that to instead being a requirement that's just posted on the municipal website. But we also add a new newspaper and website requirement for early voting that must be run at least twice. Once prior to the start of an early voting period. So, imagine the week before the 20-day early voting period begins. And once a second time, once the early voting period has commenced. So figure the first full week of early voting, the ad runs again. So that's what this bill does. But there's another section here regarding the local questions submitted to voters. There is another newspaper advertising requirement there. However, Pawtucket does not have to do that currently. If Pawtucket sends a household mailing to all of their voters, Pawtucket is exempt from that requirement. It's probably a one-off from a special election many years ago and it just inserted into here. We'd like to extend that statewide, in fact. Some towns, including Cranston, will do a postcard mailing to all voter households. That's an expensive mailing. It's about $20,000 for us in Cranston. It goes to 30,000 households. It could be a postcard, it could be a booklet with all of our charter and bond questions on it. But the law also requires us to do this newspaper ad. To us, that doesn't make much sense. We're literally putting the questions and the explanations in every single voter's mailbox. But then it'll also be required to run the ad, but while Pawtucket doesn't have to do that. So basically, all we'd like to do there is extend that statewide and also add an electronic component that doesn't currently exist, requiring all 39 cities and towns to put their local questions on their website as part of that. So again, we're not really taking away revenue for newspapers or anything like that. The towns still have the option to run the newspaper ad, but for the towns that choose, which is a requirement, to do a town or citywide mailing, they wouldn't have to run the ad in those cases. So that's everything on that bill, the exception of a couple of cleanup things around that deadline process. So again, these are some antiquated elements of the law around 17-9.1.3, which is the third page of the bill if you have it in front of you. There are some provisions, I can go back over a century, in regards to periods where boards may or may not receive voter registrations, and they cannot do so on Sundays or legal holidays, but they can do so after their normal business hours, within the 10 days leading up to the deadline. All of that is nonsensical in today's modern elections parlance. All of that language is very out of date. And nor has it, to my knowledge, ever been enforced that a board of canvassers can't accept a registration if it wanted to by going to a registration drive event on a Saturday or after hours. So that language is struck in this case. And also the language regarding the taking of registrations is changed to receiving, because again, most towns aren't actually physically taking them, they're receiving them inside of a drop box on the registration day, whether it's a drop box that the state BOE drop box, or it's a drop box that they put out at their city or town hall or the police station, as a lot of towns do. So again, it's a cleanup bill.
Okay.
It's not very, it's very technical, and it's not,
Yeah.
I think, very earth shattering.
Okay, thank you. Go. Were you going to say something about? No? Okay, great. Go ahead.
The next one is just a repeat from last year, and this is a bill that I think the BOE is very familiar with, so I won't get into too much detail on it. It's the write-in tabulation legislation. This is a bill that actually would help the BOE very much, help the local boards very much. And this is the substitute A as amended version that passed the House at the very end of the session last year. And from my understanding, the only reason it didn't pass the Senate is because it was so late in the session. We were very close last year. This was the fourth time this bill has passed the House. It's come from the BOE in the past. Now the local clerks have been pushing it as well. So we're going to put in that exact same sub A as amended, and hopefully this will be the year for that. And bill was very carefully negotiated, that sub A, with both the ACLU, with Miguel and the staff of the Board of Elections, and with the local clerks, and Chairman Shanley and the House State Government Elections Committee really helped us navigate some issues with that bill that I think have helped prevented it from passing in the past. So again, that's a big priority for the local clerks. Probably our number one priority after what is our biggest priority, which is the date of the September primary. So bearing the lead here, this is the number one concern for the local boards. The fact that this primary is occurring currently under state law the day after Labor Day is extremely concerning for a lot of the cities and towns. So under 1715-1, the primary currently is held the day after Labor Day, which means early voting has to continue on to Labor Day itself. A major concern logistically for many towns. A lot of our town halls are also election day polling locations, so they can't reasonably accommodate both an early voting site and their election day voting in the same location at the same time. There's a lot of concerns about costs, including hiring extra poll workers to run both early voting and election day voting at the same time, and also overtime costs for setup crews, which would have to come in on Labor Day. Access to polling locations on Labor Day. I've actually already lost 2 polling locations in Cranston, which will be coming in front of this board in a few weeks to change because of the Labor Day issue. So between the costs and logistics concerns, there's a lot of concern amongst the cities and towns, which is why this is a big priority. So we've reached out to the Secretary of State's office, who are supportive of this legislation, provided that some of the deadlines that are currently in statute around the candidate nomination process do not change. So that's why those are exempted in the language, and also provided that they're supportive that this bill passes by the February break. So we are looking to have the General Assembly hopefully adjust the date of the primary to change it from Tuesday to Wednesday, no later by, I say, the end of February, so that candidates, voters, and election officials can all adequately prepare. So those are our 4 bills, Madam Chair. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Great. I think Commissioner Bettenker has a
I
question.
just have a question. So your bill, this last one about primaries, it's basically the same thing that the Secretary of State has at the end. So are you putting a second bill, or are you like,
So-
what's the goal?
Commissioner, it's a little bit different. So in this case, the Secretary's bill, if it were to pass,
more
wouldn't go into effect for this year. It would go in effect for future.
28.
Right. So this would affect this year. This is only related to years in which
I
the
just
primary
saw that.
falls during Labor Day week,
Mhm,
whereas the Secretary's bill, which we also support, by the way,
mhm.
would
Got it.
move up the primary a full week in most cases. And by the way, the Clerks Association, which meets at the end of this month, is expected to support all 4 of the
Mhm.
Secretary's bills. And our Elections Committee, which comprises 15 different cities and towns, has already voted to support all of the Secretary's
Thank-
legislation.
Yeah, thank you. I didn't read that part. I appreciate that.
Thanks, Nick. Any other questions?
And just as a point of reference,
Yep.
the board
you.
voted to support all, these are all repeat bills except for the primary, correct? And and I believe you may have tweaked the newspaper advertisement bill somewhat. So other than the primary, bill, the board voted last year to support, each of these pieces
Great.
of legislation.
Okay, great. And thank you, Nick. And as with the others, we'll take up formal votes next Tuesday. Okay. Agenda item number 9. The board may meet in executive session pursuant to Rhode Island General Laws 42-46-5 subsection A subsection 1 to discuss the medical condition of a person subject to campaign finance filing. And so do we have a motion to move into executive session? Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, abstention, motion carries, and we are going into executive session at 5:20 PM. Please let the record show that Commissioner Connors had to leave the meeting at 5:47 PM. And do we have a motion to seal the minutes of executive session and resume open session?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, abstentions? We are back in open session.
And Madam Chair, I have two matters to report out from executive session on agenda item number 9. Board member Betancourt made a motion to recognize a disability under the ADA with respect to Mr. Davian Sanchez. That motion was seconded by Vice Chair DeSimone, and all 7 members of the board were present and voted in favor. None were opposed. A second motion was made by Board Member Betancourt to adopt and allow for the accommodations that were requested through a letter of December 17, 2025 by Ms. Kate Bowden on behalf of Mr. Sanchez. That motion was seconded by Mr. Reposa. Again, all 7 board members were present and all voted in favor. None opposed.
No, yeah, you left at the wrong time.
And that's all I have to report out, Madam
Oh,
Chair.
because I have to read the, okay. Sorry. Okay, so agenda item number 10, the board may discuss and vote to modify the fines imposed by the September 18th, 2024 consent order with Davian Sanchez for violations of campaign finance laws under Title 17, Chapter 25 of the Rhode Island General Laws. Henry, you're starting us.
Yep.
And I will be right.
Yep, okay. Ms. Bowden, do you, and Mr. Sanchez, you want to come to the table? And Kate, you just want to press that button till it's green.
Can you hear me now?
We can. And counsel, just for the record, if you could identify yourself for the record, and obviously during the pendency of the hearing, if there are any accommodations that you need, or if your client needs to take a break in any way, just let us know.
Okay, yes, my name is Kate Bowden from Disability Rights Rhode Island. I'm here to represent Davian Sanchez, Mr. Sanchez.
Rick, if you want to just give us sort of an overview on
Sure.
the financial.
Right, for item number 10 on the agenda, the modifications of the consent order. The consent order was executed, signed on September 18, 2024, as the result of findings in a campaign finance audit where violations of campaign finance law were identified for Mr. Sanchez. The consent order called for a civil penalty of $5,000 to be paid in 2 separate $2,500 installments. The first was timely paid. The second has been held in abeyance, subject to determination in this matter.
And you said the 2,500 was paid.
$2,500 was paid, yes.
And Mr. Vice Chair, did you also want a brief summary with respect to the other monies that have been
If we
accrued?
could,
Just
because I think the board wants to handle them all together.
Separately, there are accrued campaign finance fines for the late filing of campaign finance reports that have been assessed to Mr. Sanchez. Mr. Sanchez ran for Providence City Council in 2010 and 2014, required to file campaign finance reports. There were 55 reports that were filed late. At this point, the outstanding reports, as a result of the audit, the outstanding reports were filed. His account is closed for the Board of Elections. During the time when those reports were not being filed, the late filing fines had accumulated to a total of $195,621. The board
in 2025 adopted a regulation that would reduce disproportionate fines. Mr. Sanchez would fall into category 4 of the regulation, in which he was a candidate for office. He did file all the required campaign finance reports as a result of the audit, and the maximum fine based on this regulation would be $12,168. The staff recommendation is to lower that amount even further to $4,208, due within 90 days. The failure to pay within 90 days, the matter would be referred to Department of Revenue Central Collections Unit. If the debt ends up there, Mrs. Sanchez would have an opportunity to negotiate and work out a payment plan or a mediation with the CCU as well.
Council, do you want to address any of that? Obviously,
Yeah.
we'd like to handle, and I mean, again, just speaking from what happened in executive session, we sort of like to pool these together. I think that's the
Correct.
intent for the board, to pool these
Right.
together. So any discussion you want to have with regard to
Sure,
the
so-
financial ability.
What we're looking at is the full picture now based on the staff recommendation would be there's 2,500 was yet to be paid. And then staff was recommending a 4,208. Were there any changes to your recommendation after the submissions that were made?
That's correct. I would make the recommendation to the board that the $2,500 that has been paid pursuant to the consent order be accepted as payment in full, and thereby fully satisfying the consent order. However, the $4,208 that is due and owing separately due to late filing fines would still be my recommendation to the board. Again, these were fines that were assessed prior to any issue, and Mrs. Sanchez would have the ability to work out that debt further with the state's central collections unit.
So in summary, from November to now, the staff recommendation has changed a bit. So staff is now recommending to accept the 2,500 payment on the consent order, but staff is still recommending fines for late filing to be pursued in the amount of 4,200. And so on behalf of Mr. Sanchez, I would say that we produced significant documentation of financial distress that stems from a significant injury in 2023. The financial documentation that we provided included multiple credit cards with thousands of dollars on them, a judgment from Rhode Island Imaging pursuing monies, student loans, and an ongoing case involving lead that has been resolved, but the Attorney General's office will not lift the lien, which makes it difficult for my client to navigate issues relating to his housing and costs him money for a lawyer as well.
Yeah.
So our position is that we're asking the board to consider further reducing the amount that staff is requiring to whatever you would consider is feasible.
Additionally, I think the last time he was here, there was a representation made as to where he was employed, and my understanding is that may have changed as well.
That has changed
Yeah.
as well. He was released from his job right before the holidays. I did submit to staff a copy of the contract for the previous employment, which just for point of reference shows that it was a commission-based job with a base salary of $3,500. And I believe my client shared with me that there were commissions that it was impossible to ever reach them. So we're not working with someone who has a significant salary. And that job has since ceased.
Yeah.
So we
appreciate
would
that.
request consideration of a reduction of the late fees, in addition to waiving of the second 2,500 to whatever amount this board feels that they have the appetite for, frankly.
Go ahead,
I
Commissioner
just have one
Brinker.
question for Ray
Can I
before.
just have a recess just for one second? Just want to.
I thought the same thing.
Oh, I didn't.
Do you have to do that now? Yeah.
Just, I'm gonna step down for this vote only because I'm an employee of Rhode Island Medical Imaging. And so just because there's a judgment, our attorney has suggested that I,
Yeah, thank you for letting us know there's an actual,
Thank you.
there's a judgment on that. Is that right? It's unsatisfied, an unsatisfied judgment?
Yeah, that's my understanding. Mr.
Let the
Sanchez
record
was not aware of it.
reflect that Commissioner Jackoni has recused and is leaving the podium temporarily.
And that he raised
And-
this
But
question.
he
Yeah.
raised this issue as an employee of one of the creditors.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
You
And
can
you,
get it again.
okay,
Sorry.
Marcel, Commissioner
Thank you.
Bettenker.
Yes, so I thank you for sharing that. At least what I would propose, I don't think, I think this board may not need to take any additional fines. So I would make a motion to not, to follow the staff recommendations to a certain point, to accept the $2,500 that have been paid to date, but not impose any other fees.
Under that, under the 4,200 you want to waive, is that what you're asking? that
Yes,
that-
I'm
that be
waiving any
waived?
other fees aside from what has already been
Mhm.
paid. So I don't, at this point with the information that has been shared with us, I don't think that the Board of Elections needs to collect any more funds from Mr. Sanchez.
We have a motion made by Commissioner Bettenker. Do we have a second to that motion?
A second.
Seconded by Commissioner Scholes. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, abstentions, and motion carries. And I wish you the very best, Mr. Sanchez, and your continued recovery. And thank you, Kate,
Thank you.
for being here today with us and, bringing us up to speed and educating us further. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Kate.
Thank you.
Kate is great. Yes, big fan of Kate.
She is the best,
Thank you all.
of course.
Will he receive some type of writing indicating that?
Yeah.
Have made those or-
Thank you all.
And I think, yeah, we can put that
Yes. we'll put that in
into
letter
a
form
document
to
that
Ms.
you
Yep.
can have, and
Mr. Thornton and I
Full-
will.
Yeah,
Okay.
come up
full
with-
satisfaction of the
I know
consent
you have a
order,
long
yes.
road ahead, and hopefully this helps you to be able to focus more solely on your recovery. And I have every faith you're going to work through this and hopefully, get everything back on track. You deserve the best. Thank you. Thank you. And I think, bye, Kate. I think, Miguel, you mentioned, we are going to move, to agenda item number 15 because we do have Mr. Jackson
Correct.
here.
Yes.
And so I will, now take agenda item number 15. The board may discuss and vote to reduce penalties imposed upon Kevin Jackson under Rhode Island General Laws 17-25 for good cause pursuant to Rhode Island Rules and Regulations 410 RICR-10-00-14, campaign finance accounts receivable, reduction of penalties, and suspension of campaign accounts. And Rick, welcome, Mr. Jackson.
To summarize, for Mr. Jackson, Mr. Jackson ran for Providence City Council in 2002, 2006, 2010, 2014. During that time, based on reports he filed with the Board of Elections, he raised and spent over $65,000. Prior history with the board, in September 2011, the board voted to initiate a civil action in Superior Court to cover late filing fines and to compel the filing of delinquent campaign finance reports. The board obtained a judgment on November 28, 2012 in the amount of $23,150, which upon agreement was settled for $10,000 and paid. Thereafter, Mr. Jackson again failed to file required campaign finance reports for his election to Providence City Council. resulting in late filing penalties and fees of $15,364. Based on the regulation, Mr. Jackson would again fall into category 4, where all the reports have been filed, the account is now closed. However, the maximum fine pursuant to the regulation would be $12,410. My recommendation is to maintain that amount of $12,410 due within 90 days. The failure to pay within 90 days would refer the matter over to Central Collections Unit. Mr. Jackson, again, was a seasoned candidate, was very well aware of his campaign finance report requirements, repeatedly failed to file required campaign finance reports in a timely manner, nor were they accurate as well. So I think the staff recommendation of maintaining the maximum reduced fine is warranted in this case.
Okay, thank you, Rick. Any board members have any initial comments or questions for Rick before I open to Mr. Jackson? Okay, sir, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, commissioners. I would just like to bring to your attention, and again, I apologize if I'm not fully prepared. I'm not a lawyer at all. I'm a social worker. But my case went to Superior Court. As you know, I was convicted. I served time, and I was ordered to pay restitution to the Board of Elections and also to the nonprofit. Per the information I have from the financial people at the court, I paid restitution in the amount of $12,074.06 to the Board of Elections. I have a printout from them stating that, so that the balance of that would be owed of $896.64. I continue to make my monthly payments to the Superior Court. Mr. Mike Burns has also given me the number to his office if anyone would like to reach out to him. And also note that on 11/22/23, per Magistrate Lopes, victim of count 1, has been charged to the Rhode Island Board of Elections an amount in escrow of $11,149.47, and that should have been sent to the Board of Elections. And I have a copy of that check also from them. And so I would ask that I just be allowed to continue to pay my restitution, which I do on a monthly basis. I have a 6-month monthly review of all my restitution at Superior Court, and that has shown that I paid that amount and will continue to pay restitution.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I interject
Yeah,
here?
please.
We have received payment, actually, we have received a little bit more than that. It's up to $11,178.68. We received a small check recently on restitution. I do want to point out that the penalty that was assessed by the Superior Court called for the restitution of $12,000 for personal use of campaign funds. Again, it's a separate and distinct issue from late
Right.
filing of reports. So while I acknowledge everything that Mr. Jackson stipulated here in terms of the restitution payments made, again, that was a penalty set by the court for the personal use of campaign funds. That's a separate statutory provision. Again, what's before us here are for the late filing of the campaign finance reports.
Right. Yes.
So Rick, I understand, I understand that he did not pay anything towards his $12,000 then.
No, the restitution.
I know, I
yes.
talked about the restitution for
Yeah.
Superior Court, but the $12,000 fine that you recommended, has he made any payments towards that at all?
No, the total fines outstanding as of today, actually are $15,364. Based on the regulation, my recommendation to the board reduces that amount to $12,410. So that's before you today.
When was the last time he made payment to the board for anything?
The last time he made payment would go back to the payment that was ordered through the Civil Action Superior Court based in way back in 2011. And again, that was $23,150, which again was settled for $10,000, and that has been paid in full. But that goes back to, well, 2012.
Thanks.
Yes.
So what are the restitution payments that we're receiving now?
Therefore, again, the court found that he needed to make restitution for Mr. Jackson's personal use of campaign money.
So that was not part of the $23,150?
What is it? So-
It said that,
Oh, no, that was not part of it. That was
Okay.
separate.
okay,
Yes,
so
that
that's
was,
just a separate.
yes, exactly.
Thank you.
Anyone?
Yes, Mr. Jackson, a question. You said you were convicted of this campaign finance. What was the sentence?
Yes. The sentence was, I apologize. The sentence was a term of 1 year and 6 months at the ACI and suspended of 8 years, 6 months. So the probation is for 8 years, 6 months.
Did you serve time at the ACI?
Yes, I did.
Good. Okay.
I just want to make sure I have the numbers right. We had a lot of
Yeah.
numbers
Yeah.
thrown out.
Yeah.
So I understand Mr. Thornton's recommendation, staff recommendation. I have that number. But there's also there was a $10,000 fine as well as some other fine that Mr. Jackson is paying on a regular basis.
That's correct. There were two separate actions. Legal counsel initiated a complaint in Superior Court back in 2011
Okay.
having to do with the non-filing of campaign finance reports. The board successfully received a judgment in 2012, the amount of $23,150, which was reduced upon agreement to $10,000 and paid. Separately, and again, that started in 2011. Separately, in 2018, Mr. Jackson was sentenced to 18 months in prison for embezzling funds from the Providence Cobras and using $12,000 in campaign funds for personal use. So they're two separate legal matters.
Got it. So in total, to the Board of Elections for different reasons, he's paid us $10,000 and about $11,000 for restoration.
For
So about-
restitution of that, yes,
Thank you.
correct.
I said restoration.
I knew what you meant.
I can't understand my own
Yeah.
handwriting. Restitution. Got it. So it's about $21,000 he's already paid the Board of Elections.
Yeah.
And we're asking for 12 more. I saw ducks outside up here.
See, Mr. Jackson, are you employed?
No, I'm not. I'm fully retired at this point.
So what is your source of income?
My social income is a pension and my social security,
And your pension is from what
The city of
Employer?
Providence.
city of Providence.
city property?
Ray, I just have one other question. I don't know whether you know the answer or not. Was the restitution amount that the court has been having him pay on the violations? Is that restitution amount, was that an amount that was submitted by us as a damage? Because generally
That was through
restitution-
the Attorney General. I don't know what that was not from us.
That wasn't from us. I'm just wondering how they arrived at that restitution amount.
I don't know how they arrived at that. Do you, Rick?
I believe they conducted an audit and they discovered there was the personal use of campaign funds.
Yeah.
And that was the amount they arrived at.
I know, but it was restitution, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Right.
Usually restitution is for monies owed because of,
a
it's not
sum-
like in the nature of a fine.
A sum certain
Yeah.
of money that was taken, yeah.
So I'm just trying to deal
Right.
with how they arrived at the restitution number. And do you know that, Mr. Jackson, by any chance?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm assuming that it was discussed between my personal attorney at the time and also
Yeah.
the prosecution.
Mhm.
But that's the only thing I know
Mhm.
in regards to that.
Okay.
And again, I thought that all this was part of the restitution and everything. I just continue to pay on a monthly basis.
Yeah.
Ever since I've been released from jail. And obviously, like I said, Mike Burns has provided, if anyone wants to see that or anything, or speak to Mike. I have not missed a payment.
So, Mr. Jackson, Mr. Thorne recommended a fine of $12,000. Uh, Can you pay that?
I cannot.
Can you make monthly payments?
I cannot because I'm already making monthly payments
Mhm.
to the Superior
What
Court.
are your monthly payments?
$200 a month.
200. Okay.
How long will you be continuing to make the payments to the Superior
I'll
Court?
make those payments continually through the end of
Until
my
he is.
probation, which is
Yep.
2029.
Mhm.
29, okay.
So that's 3 more years.
Mhm.
That's a good deal.
Yes, September 11th, 2029.
Yep. Would the board feel comfortable? Go ahead, yes.
Go ahead.
Seems like we're having some unique cases today. I'm just trying to look at all the numbers and I appreciate all the work again the staff has done. But perhaps just as a suggestion is for a discussion point, maybe we agree to waive the fine if Mr. Jackson continues to pay his regular payments restitution. I recognize that those are separate. And I thank Mr. Thornton for explaining to me that it was pre-2018 and then 2018 forward, which is that new fine. But considering he's already paying tangentially related to this situation, I think if that would be my suggestion, maybe in the form of a motion to say if he continues to pay on a regular basis, which I think we can monitor because clearly we're getting some sort of pass through with the funds, is on time and up to date, then we will waive the fee, hold it in abeyance till September 11th, 2029, and then waive it to move it to zero if everything's paid.
I would second if that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
And I apologize. I hope that's not terribly complicated for her, but just, but
Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions?
Thank you.
The ayes have it. Motion passes. Sorry, delayed reaction. Thank you. Agenda item number 12, the board may discuss and vote to reduce penalties imposed upon Jeffrey K. Gale under Rhode Island General Law 17-25 and to suspend their campaign finance account for good cause pursuant to Rhode Island Rules and Regulations 410-RICR-10-00-14, campaign finance accounts receivable, reduction of penalties, and suspension of campaign account. I keep looking at Ray. I don't know why you're right here, Rick.
All right, Mr. Gale ran for Cranston School Committee in 2010, 12, 14, 16, and 22. He ran for Cranston City Council in 2018. During those election periods, he did not raise too much money, about close to $10,000, spent pretty much the same. He filed his initial report for the 2022 election, but then did not file the annual summary. Again, he filed the affidavit for annual filing exemption, indicating he was not intending on raising or spending much money during the 2022 election. Unfortunately, he did not provide that final summary, so neither the board nor the public nor his opponents knew what he raised or spent during the 2022 election. He has not filed any reports since, which has resulted in the total late filing fines and fees of $11,132. According to the regulation, the maximum fine could be $17,000. Again, he did not file all the reports for that election period. Again, some history in 2017, Mr. Gale appeared before the board to appeal for reduction in accumulated late filing penalties of $11,815, which was assessed for late filing on 19 campaign finance reports from the 2012, 28 days after election through the 2017 first quarter report, including reports due for 3 election periods. The board voted to reduce the fine to $1,000, which was paid. So Mr. Gale has some history with the board. So the staff recommendation is to assess a fine of $4,250, which is, again, the 17 reports pursuant to the regulation at a reduced fee of $250 per report, due within 90 days. Failure to pay within 90 days, the matter would get referred to the Central Collections Unit, and then also to suspend his account.
Thanks, Rick. And just to confirm, Mr. Gale, along with all of the individuals that we're hearing of today, were informed that their case was coming before
Yes,
the
they-
board and had an option to appear.
Correct. In many
Okay.
cases, again, because some of these are aged at this
Yeah.
point, it's the address information we have when they ran for office
Yeah.
is no longer relevant. So there's quite a bit of research that goes on
Yeah.
to actually try to locate where
Yeah.
they're at. But in this case, we did locate Mr. Gale. and
Okay.
He was informed.
Thank you for that. Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
I'll make a motion to accept the recommendation of the fine at $4,250 due within 90 days, and a failure to pay in 90 days would refer the unpaid premium to the Department of Revenue, Central Collections Unit, and suspension of the campaign account.
Thank you, Vice Chair. We have a motion seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, abstentions, motion passes. And as I understand it, Director, we are going to move agenda item number 13 to a subsequent
Nope.
meeting, correct? No?
Number 17 is getting.
Numbers.
Number
Oh,
13, yeah.
sorry, there was a
Same.
Scott and a
There was a
Scott
lot of
first name and a
Scots.
Scott last name. Okay,
Okay.
never mind. So agenda item number 13, the board may discuss and vote to reduce penalties imposed upon Scott E. Phillips under Rhode Island General Laws 17-25 and to suspend their campaign finance accounts for good cause pursuant to Rhode Island Rules Regulations 410-RICR-10-00-14 campaign finance accounts receivable, reduction of penalties and suspension of campaign account. Sorry about that, Rick.
Mr. Phillips ran for Warwick City Council in 2020. He raised and spent about $6,800. He had small balance left in his account at the end of that election of $46.17. He filed all the reports for the 2020 election, but then stopped filing. He is behind on 14 reports, resulting in a total outstanding fines and fees of $9,728. That places him in category 3, where again, he filed all reports that were due for the election period, but then failed to provide a final accounting and closing account with the board. The maximum fine pursuant to the regulation is $7,492. Staff recommendation is to reduce that amount to $2,807, due within 90 days, failure of which to refer to the Central Collections Unit and to suspend Mr. Phillips' account.
Thanks, Rick. Anyone have any clarifying questions for Rick or wish to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the staff recommendation of a fine of $2,807 due within 90 days and failure to pay in full within the 90 days, resulting in referral of the unpaid amount to the Rhode Island Department of Revenue Central Collections Unit, as well as suspending Mr. Phillips' account.
Thank you, Commissioner Jack Boney. It's been moved and seconded by Vice Chair DeSimone. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. And agenda item number 14, the board may discuss and vote to reduce penalties imposed upon Jeffrey E. Lemire under Rhode Island General Laws 17-25 for good cause pursuant to Rhode Island Rules and Regulations 410-RICR-10-00-14, campaign finance accounts receivable, reduction of penalties, and suspension of campaign account.
Mr. Lemire ran for Providence mayor in 2014, though he did not qualify to be on the ballot. He also ran in 2018, where he was on the ballot, ran for Providence City Council in a special election in 2019. Based on reports he did file with the Board of Elections, he didn't raise or spend any money for any of those campaigns. He did on August 3, 2022, he filed the election reports for the 2019 election and dissolved his account with the board. However, by the time he dissolved, he was late on 12 reports. The total outstanding fines and fees as a result of those 12 reports was $13,880. He's in category 4, again, where he filed all the reports and did dissolve, but has this outstanding late filing penalty. The maximum fine pursuant to the regulation is $9,509. The staff recommendation is to reduce that amount significantly to $1,500 based on the 3 election reports at $500 a report. Due within 90 days, the failure of which to pay that amount would refer the matter over to Central Collections Unit.
Thanks, Rick.
I'll make a motion to approve the staff recommendation.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it. Agenda item number 16, the board may discuss and vote to reduce penalties imposed upon Luis A. Aponte under Rhode Island General Laws 17-25 for good cause pursuant to Rhode Island Rules and Regulations 410-RICR-10-00-14, campaign finance accounts receivable, reduction of penalties, and suspension of campaign account.
Okay. Mr. Ponte ran for Providence City Council in 2002, 2006, 2010, 2014, 2018. He also ran for state senator in 2004. During that time, he raised and spent nearly $90,000. Prior history, in April of 2005, the Board of Elections was awarded a civil judgment of $14,082 in Superior Court on its complaint filed against Aponte for delinquent filing of campaign finance reports and non-payment of the late filing fines. On November 7, 2007, a contempt order was issued for failure. Mr. Aponte did not comply. On December 7, 2007, the original judgment was amended for a total judgment of $19,762.77 with payment through the garnishment of wages in the amount of $250 per month. The amount was paid in full as of January 13, 2014. Late filing, Mr. Aponte ended up being delinquent on 55 reports. Again, this is separate and distinct from that civil judgment, resulting in late filing fines of $50,909. He is in category 4. Again, all reports at this point have been filed. His account is dissolved. The staff recommendation would be to maintain the maximum fine of $30,542 due within 90 days, failure of which to refer the matter over to CCU for collection. In September 2016, the board voted to refer the case of Mr. Aponte to the Office of Attorney General related to personal use of campaign funds. In July 2019, he pleaded nolo in Superior Court to a felony count of embezzlement. It was sentenced to 4.5 years suspended sentence and 4.5 years probation. So there've been some history with Mr. Aponte as well. So again, based on his number of times running, a seasoned candidate, and again, kind of the severity of his delinquency and filing, I do think the staff recommendation of maintaining the $30,542 in fines is warranted.
A motion to accept the staff recommendation of $30,542, fine due and payable within 90 days, and failure to pay within the 90 days will result in referral to the Rhode Island Department of Revenue, Central Collections Unit for debt collection.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. And now we are going to move agenda item number 17 for Jonathan P. Scott to a subsequent meeting. Is that correct? Okay. Do we need a motion to do that, or I could just say it?
We can take a motion to
Okay.
continue that. Is it to the next?
The next meeting or subsequent? Okay. Okay. Do we have a
He's out of
motion?
state. He's
Do a
out of
motion on
state,
that.
so-
He's out of state. Okay. Can I get a motion to move this agenda item to a subsequent meeting yet to be determined?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Agenda item number 18, the board may discuss and vote to reduce penalties imposed upon Timothy W. Burchett under Rhode Island General Laws 17-25 and to suspend their campaign finance account for good cause pursuant to Rhode Island Rules, Regulations 410-RICR-10-00-14, 4, campaign finance accounts receivable, reduction of penalties, and suspension of campaign account.
Mr. Burchett ran once. He ran for state representative in 2010. Mr. Burchett filed the annual exemption at the beginning of the campaign, indicating he was not going to raise or spend much money during that campaign. Unfortunately, he did not file the summary for that election period, and in fact, didn't file any campaign finance reports for the election period. His outstanding fines and fees have accumulated to $323,855. He is in category 2 of the regulation, indicating he failed to file one or more reports for an election period, nor did he dissolve his account. The maximum fine is $17,000 based on the regulation. Staff recommendation is to reduce that to $4,250. Referral to the Central Collections Unit if not paid within 90 days, and to suspend the account. Mr. Burchett is not living in Rhode Island any longer. It's my understanding with the Central Collections Unit that they do have reciprocity with other states in terms of collections.
So can I ask, have you been in contact at all with this person?
Only attempts by mail. He's claimed his mail, but he has not communicated with us.
Wow.
Say, Rick, where does he live?
He's living in South Carolina.
I'll make a motion to accept the staff's recommendation.
Second.
Moved and seconded to accept the staff recommendation as outlined by Mr. Thornton. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, abstentions? The ayes have it. Agenda item number 19, the board may discuss and vote to reduce penalties imposed upon James W. Quinlan under Rhode Island General Laws 17-25 and to suspend their campaign finance account for good cause pursuant to Rhode Island Rules and Regulations 410-RICR-10-00-14, campaign finance accounts receivable, reduction of penalties, and suspension of campaign account. And I think I'll be saying that in my signature.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry. I'm going to actually, for the second time, to recuse myself because I happen to know Mr. Quinlan. I haven't seen him in probably 15 years, but when he did run for office in 2008, I gave him some informal advice. I had no official capacity on his campaign, but I'm going to step away from this one as well.
Okay,
So,
that's right. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Quinlan ran for Cranston City Council in 2008 and also for state representative in 2010. During that time, he raised about $4,800 and spent a little over $3,000 and loaned his campaign $7,500. He had a loan balance, he had an ending cash balance as of the last report he filed of almost $1,100. When you subtract the loan payable balance from that, he has a remaining fund balance of $348.31. He has, again, he has 61 reports in arrears, including 2 reports for the 2010 election period. He has total outstanding fines and fees of $334,959. He is in category 2 of the regulation. Again, did not file all the reports for the election period, nor did he dissolve. The maximum fine would be $18,348.31, which would be 18 reports at $1,000 per report plus the remaining fund balance. The staff recommendation is to reduce that to $48,48.31, 18 reports at $250 a report plus the fund balance. The fine would be due within 90 days. With a failure to pay within 90 days, refer the matter to Central Collections Unit, and then also ask the board to suspend the account.
Thank you, Rick. Would member wish to make a motion?
Move we accept the staff's recommendation of a fine of $4,848.31. Fine due to be paid within 90 days. A failure to pay in full within 90 days, resulting in the deferral of the unpaid amount to the Rhode Island Department of Revenue, Central Collections Unit for debt collection, and the suspension of his account.
Thank you, Commissioner Scholes, seconded by Vice Chair DeSimone. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And let the record show that would Commissioner Jackoni have abstained or he recused altogether?
He would recuse. from
So
that.
there would be, so no abstentions.
There were no abstentions, that's
Okay.
right.
All right, great. Motion passes. do we have, make sure I'm not missing anything, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Every time. Moved and seconded to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, and no one's opposed.